Welcome back to another explainer. Today we are diving headfirst into a historical mystery wrapped in an absolutely incredible intellectual legacy. So, throughout history, one man was known simply as the first teacher, and you probably know him. That was Aristotle. But who on earth could possibly follow in his footsteps to claim the monumental title of the second teacher? Well, the answer to that question is a brilliant 9th century Turkish philosopher named Abu Nasr Muhammad al-Farabi. He wasn't just a scholar. This guy was the ultimate intellectual bridge between massive, seemingly completely disparate worlds. He literally brought classical Greek philosophy into perfect harmony with Islamic culture.
Okay, Section 1. Meet the second teacher, Al-Farabi's origins.
Abu Nasr Mohammed bin Tarhan bin Uzlug al-Farabi et-Turki. There is just an incredible amount of weight and history packed right into that full name. Born around 870 AD in the Vasich village of the Farab region in Turkestan, he actually came from quite a noble background. In fact, his father was the commander of the Vasich fortress, so he grew up in this incredibly vibrant, multicultural environment under the Samanid dynasty, where he got a really solid foundational education focused on religious sciences and the Arabic language.
But here is where his story takes a truly fascinating turn. As a young man, he had it made. He had a comfortable, highly prestigious life, serving as a qadi, which is a judge. But then he was faced with a stark choice. On one side, he had the comfort and the high societal status of his judgeship. On the other, severe asceticism and a grueling lifelong pursuit of truth. So what caused this massive shift? The answer is Aristotle. The very second he encountered Aristotle's works, it was like a light bulb went off. He realized the immense, life-altering value of science and philosophy. He completely walked away from his lucrative career as a judge because he just knew he had to dedicate his entire existence to learning.
Moving right along to Section 2, a scholar's epic journey, the epic quest for knowledge.
This kind of insatiable hunger for knowledge, it couldn't be satisfied by just staying in one place. It required massive, relentless physical movement across the Islamic world. He starts off in Vasich with his foundational studies. Then, as a youth, he heads straight to Baghdad, which at the time was the absolute greatest scientific center of the era. There, he studies Arabic grammar and dives super deep into logic with the Christian scholar Mata bin Yunus. But he doesn't stop there, no way. He travels onward to Harran to study under the Christian priest Yuhanna bin Haylan, immersing himself even further into Aristotelian logic. Finally, he spends his later years in Damascus, where he focuses on writing and teaching until his death in 950 AD.
These travels turned him into a true polymath. He mastered a staggering array of disciplines. We're talking logic, metaphysics, mathematics, astronomy, political science, and get this, even music theory. He actually wrote the Kitabu Musical Kabir, or the Great Book of Music, which remains a massively important historical work on the theory of music to this very day. He wasn't just lightly reading up on these topics. He was mastering absolutely everything he touched.
Section 3. Bridging East and West, Synthesizing Knowledge.
So Al-Farabi was basically the ultimate intellectual bridge. He became the very first thinker to take Islamic philosophy and turn it into a complete, coherent system. And it's amazing how he pulled from such distinct external influences to do it. It's like a giant puzzle. He took Aristotle and mastered Aristotelian logic. He took Plato's ideas, specifically the concept of the philosopher king, and used that to build his own political theory. He integrated Neo-Platonism to explain cosmology and the origins of the universe, and then he masterfully wove the whole shebang together with Islamic theology, integrating heavy concepts like prophecy, revelation, and the afterlife.
To pull off a flawless synthesis like that, he had to rely on incredibly rigorous philosophical methods. One absolutely crucial one is Burhan, or demonstration. Al-Farabi emphasized this as the absolute highest form of reasoning and logic, used specifically to reach certain undeniable truth. And he didn't just keep it to himself. To make sure future scholars could actually understand and debate these profound truths, he acted as a linguistic pioneer. He refined the Arabic language itself, creating this clear and bright terminology to express these incredibly complex philosophical ideas for generations to come. Another critical piece of his unified system was his cosmology, centered around Sudur, or Emanation. This is the Neo-Platonic theory where the universe essentially overflows from the necessary being. By adopting this very specific framework, al-Farabi actually managed to harmonize the seemingly contradictory views of Plato and Aristotle. And by the way, he had so much respect for those two, he referred to them as the divine philosophers.
All right, Section 4, Designing the Virtuous City, Political Utopia.
So you might be wondering, how did he apply all this vast abstract knowledge to practical, everyday human life? Well, within the Islamic tradition, al-Farabi is considered the absolute founder of political philosophy. He developed a highly unique political utopia called al-Madina al-Fadila, which translates to the Virtuous City. Sort of mirroring Plato's Republic, this was a vision of a society where citizens cooperate perfectly together to achieve true happiness. But in al-Farabi's city, the leader had to be completely exceptional. He placed the nature of the state and the role of the ruler right at the dead center of his system, arguing that the ruler must possess both deep philosophical wisdom and prophetic qualities. But how do you actually build a virtuous city from the ground up? Al-Farabi believed it required a highly specific two-step approach to human development. Step 1 is teaching, or talim. This is simply imparting theoretical knowledge and raw facts. Step 2 is education, or tarbiyah, and this is much deeper. This is the vital formation of moral character and ethical habits. He intentionally separated acquiring knowledge from developing a moral compass, insisting that both were completely mandatory for a society to actually function. And honestly, to ensure this virtuous city had the right theoretical knowledge to teach in the first place, he literally had to organize all of human understanding. In his groundbreaking work, Ihsa ul-Ulum, or the enumeration of the sciences, he provided the very first systematic classification of all human knowledge of his time. We're talking everything from linguistics and logic, all the way down to physics, metaphysics, and political science. He was giving society a perfectly categorized map to understand the world.
Which brings us to Section 5, the pursuit of happiness, the ultimate goal.
So, what was the point of all this? All this intense studying and systemizing? Well, al-Farabi taught an ethics of happiness. He strongly believed that sa'adat, or happiness, is the ultimate goal of human life. But, to be clear, this wasn't about fleeting physical pleasure. For him, true, lasting joy could only be achieved through intellectual perfection, by directly aligning the human soul with what he called the active intellect, or Faal Akıl. Now, I want you to just think about a tiny, very specific number. 4. 4 dirhams. During his later years in Damascus, while he was living under the patronage of the incredibly powerful Hamdanid ruler Saif al-Dawla, this was the daily stipend al-Farabi accepted. Just 4 dirhams a day. That was just enough to cover his absolute most basic survival needs.
It's just such a staggering contrast, right? I mean, here's a man who possessed massive intellectual wealth, yet he lived an incredibly ascetic, solitary physical life. Actually, he outright refused immense riches and gifts from the ruler. He never married. Instead, he preferred to spend his time just being out in nature, engaging in intense discussions with his students, and writing. He spent his final days entirely focused on what truly mattered to his soul, right up until his death at the age of around 80. Which leaves us with a profound and frankly challenging question to end on. How are you aligning your mind to find true happiness in your own city? Al-Farabi abandoned societal prestige and wealth for the grueling, beautiful pursuit of ultimate truth. He showed us over 1,000 years ago that mastering our minds and forming our moral character is the true path to sa'adat. So, as you continue your own learning journey, maybe take a page from the second teacher. Focus on what truly enriches the intellect. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep seeking the truth, and I'll catch you next time.